Paul Scully, thanks so much for your time. Have you spoken to any of the manufacturers that have put up their hand only to be disappointed that the government's actually got this personal protective equipment out of China?
Well, thanks, Kieran, and thanks for having me on this afternoon. And I have. Wollongong manufacturers jumped at the opportunity on the 1st of April to put in some bids and try and do their part to not only look at how their business might be used more effectively, but also get those improvements of supply to the government. And rightly so, when that worked its way through, then the government picks up $1 billion worth of PPE from overseas. They're rightly saying, well, why did we bother? What was the government really trying to achieve with this? These are businesses interested in getting involved in the long term in a manufacturing future for New South Wales.
Yeah, so given this short-term move by the government to buy $1 billion worth of this personal protective equipment for our medical personnel out of China, is it your hope, is it the manufacturers' hope? Are they telling you that they want, hopefully in a longer term, to be part of the supply chain? Because obviously this crisis has shown the need for some of that to be done onshore.
Well, that's exactly what they're talking about. We've seen some really big holes emerge in some of our supply chain, some real vulnerabilities there. The government's had 1,800 local manufacturers that have said in one shape or another they're willing to get involved. They're willing to retool their business potentially to have a look at how those supply chain gaps can be managed better into the future. So what's the government's plan here? You've got all these people out there willing to step up, willing to get involved. You've got them to do the work to see what they could do. Now it's on the Berejiklian government to actually come up with a plan for manufacturing in New South Wales that involves using these groups, using the innovations, using the high-skilled manufacturers like we've got in Wollongong at how we can bridge some of these supply problems that have emerged through the COVID pandemic.
It certainly makes a lot of sense, and particularly in such an area, sensitive area, to have that capacity and to enhance that capacity. But what are those companies, what are the manufacturers hearing from the government? Have they had any message since the call to arms was issued by the Premier?
Not as yet. I mean, they had the initial conversations. Some of them were asked to put through pricing information, what they could do, and do some prototypes. But now's the next stage. Now we've got to look at how we deal with this into the long term and how that works for manufacturing in New South Wales, how it works for procurement more generally in New South Wales. I mean, I would love more Port Kembla steel used in projects throughout the state, throughout the country. We'd love Western Sydney manufacturers, Hunter-based manufacturers, Illawarra-based manufacturers to be part of those bigger projects the government claims that are job building, because if we're going to build those jobs into the future, we're going to have a manufacturing industry and a manufacturing sector in New South Wales that can not only do the high skill work that it's already doing, but also bridge supply chain gaps into the future. Then we've got to work with them now. The government should be stepping up and actually doing the work now to make sure that we're in a better position for the medium and for the long run.
So is it fair to say that the individuals, the companies that you've spoken to aren't disillusioned to the extent that they would just say, look, well, we tried, we failed, but they are still willing to be part of this going forward?
Look, I believe most of them would be, but they certainly feel cheated and a bit disillusioned about it. I mean, on one hand, they're happy that things weren't as bad, that PPE was needed from them, but certainly a lot of them did a lot of work getting that ready. Mining engineering firms who are looking at getting into different breathing apparatus designs, firms working with other firms in the Illawarra and across the state to try and bring it together. Now, we've got to harness that goodwill if we're going to harness the future of manufacturing in New South Wales. We should have a strong medical devices sector that we're able to manufacture here, because we have some really high-skilled manufacturing companies, innovative companies, who just want to get into supplying some of this sort of stuff. But that takes action on government procurement. The government has the list of 1,800, the Berejiklian government has the list of 1,800 manufacturers now who expressed an interest. Sure, not all of them might be ready to go, but there's certainly some goodwill there for people to change their businesses, to innovate, to update, to upgrade, and get ready, so long as the government can be serious about looking at its supply chain vulnerabilities.
New South Wales Labor frontbencher Paul Scully, appreciate your time. Thanks.